Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be taking a look at the very early Bantam USA Star Trek paperbacks. Now, considering these are 45, almost 50 years old, I think they're absolutely fantastic and they're a real slice of Star Trek nostalgia. So I hope you enjoy looking through them as much as I did. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. So this was the very first Bantam novel, and we have sort of covered this already in our last video where we looked at the complete James Blish Star Trek books. Now, obviously, most of the books he wrote were the numbered series where he was adapting the TV episodes. But I did since learn quite an interesting fact since I filmed that video, and that is that when he and his wife Judy had moved to the UK, and this was by about the publication of Star Trek's 8 or 9, Blish's literary agent had arranged for them to go to the BBC so that they could watch the BBC's own copies of Star Trek, and Judy would apparently make audio copies of those while they were watching them, and they had a much better reference material then to do the adaptations. That's why the later adaptations are a little bit longer. And the adaptations of Mudd's Women, for example, are much, much better than the earlier ones. And obviously, you know, they were the last couple to be done. So this is the very first standalone, though, and published in February 1970. And although it was a little bit basic in its plot, you see, it's not exactly a very long book. You see my copy's falling to bits. I have actually got a better one coming from a viewer who had a better first edition than mine. So yeah, February 1970. So Chris, if you're watching with your daughter Juliet, hello. But yeah, this was the first one, and although it's a little basic in plot, it was a huge seller for Bantam, and it did sort of secure the Star Trek books as a line that was worth continuing with. Like a lot of the early Star Trek books, the authors and the publishers were happy to focus on sort of a Leonard Nimoy Vulcan specific story because they were so popular, particularly with the ladies. Quite a few of these early books, in fact, do concentrate on Vulcans or Spock. So yeah, quite interested in that. So that was the very first one, and a huge hit it was as well. Now, the next book that they published was actually non-fiction. So it's the only sort of non-fiction book we'll look at today. And I did and ah about including it in this video because, you know, the rest of them are, you know, stories. But in actual fact, this, I think, because this is the complete sort of Bantam paperback story, apart from their large format books, which we're going to have a look at in the future, this one did indeed warrant a bit of further attention. So it was the first time we see the name Sondra Marshak. Now, she will become quite an influential part of the Star Trek story, and apparently she was sort of led towards working on this by Gene Roddenberry himself. It was, you know, it's sort of credited as being the book that basically revived Star Trek and made it so popular and led to the eventual Star Trek the Motion Picture, just down to this very book. Now, I particularly like the jacket, which is made up of the James Blish covers up to that point, which is quite nice. And we are looking at 1975 for when this one was published, in July, in fact. And basically what the book does, it shows, it takes a look at the early conventions, fan fiction and fanzines, plus the plans to bring the show back. So all of that is sort of covered in this book, and it is really nice. All sort of short stories and essays, basically, looking at the fan fiction as well. It's really nice. And there's sort of 3 authors. There's extracts from different fanzines included. And it's really good sort of tome, this one. Yeah, really nice. So personal notes and anecdotes. And look, their plans for Star Trek's return. So quite a key book, that one, in Star Trek history, I would say. And one definitely worth a read. Now, the next book we've got was another one which was, you know, quite instrumental in bringing Star Trek into, you know, really sort of, should we say, pay a bit of lip service to the fans, but also, to, you know, to cement its relationship as being something that's a real popular thing, and you know, top of the heap in the world of TV tie-ins, and this is Star Trek: The New Voyages. So this one was published in March 1976, and the book is made up of 8 short stories and 1 poem. They were all written by fans, and once again, it was a massive hit for Bantam and is recognised as keeping the show alive and leading to the organisation of the very early Star Trek conventions. Each story had an introduction from a cast member, and there was a follow-up volume 2 years later. Now, the concept of fan-submitted fiction was revived years later with the Strange New World series, and that's a series I'm very much looking forward to covering in a future video. But this was like the original sort of basis for the Strange New World series, the New Voyages. There we are. And as you look into the contents there, you'll see, on the whole, almost each one has got an introduction by one of the main cast. So Leonard Nimoy there, Jimmy Doohan, Nikhil Nichols, Majel Barrett Roddenberry, George Takei. Fantastic, eh? And then, you know, that particular story would generally be about that character. And once again, this is Sondra Marshak and Myrna Culbreath. And as I said, I am looking forward. That was the precursor to the Strange New Worlds, and I have actually bought my Strange New Worlds book collection now. So let's have a look at them now. So there is my my run of the 10 Strange New Worlds paperbacks in trade paperback. I think the first 1 or 2 came in normal sort of A format paperback. Now, I've had particular job finding nice copies of numbers 9 and 10. I think those are quite difficult to get hold of, but the rest of them, I pretty much bought them as they were coming out. It's a series I would dearly love them to bring back, and then I'd have a stab at putting 1 or 2 submissions in myself. Yeah, so you never know. I don't know whether it would ever happen, but I'd certainly like it to. But yeah, the New Voyages and is what became, in effect, you know, the same idea: fan-submitted fiction put into the Strange New World. So we'll have a look at those in a lot more detail in a future video. So September 1976 saw the publication of Spock Messiah. So it's yet another Spock-centric story. So at this time, the series was being edited by science fiction writer Frederick Poole, and he tasked the 2 co-authors, Theodore Cogswell and Charles A. Spano Jr., to get the crew off the ship. Basically, that was his brief. Thus, it does become a bit of a sort of a quest novel set on a planet. It's a bit of a strange plot. The crew are implanted with special devices that link them to the planet's natives. One of these is sabotaged, and Spock gets linked with a madman who thinks he is the planet's savior. Really nice jacket on that one. I'm trying to see who the artist is. It said Apron or something, it looks like. Yeah. So that's Spock Messiah. Someone's got one of those nice little fold-outs inside. We saw that in one of the numbered Star Trek books as well, didn't we? Looking at the cells from the animated series. So we'll slip that one over there. So July 1977 saw the publication of The Price of the Phoenix. So yet again, it's another novel that looks at a duplicate crew member, this time Captain Kirk. So it has an incredible opening with the body of a dead Kirk being beamed onto the Enterprise in a body bag. It was launched with a huge print run of 250,000 copies, and that book, from, you know, with that print run from a couple of pretty much unproved authors, was quite a gamble for Frederick Poole, the series editor. However, his faith in the novel did pay off, and it was another big hit for Bantam, and it was soon reprinted. In fact, Bill Shatner and Leonard Nimoy are quoted as saying it would have made a fantastic first Star Trek film to bring the series back, and that's quite high praise, isn't it? So that was The Price of the Phoenix. Now, the next one is Planet of Judgement. Now, this one was published in August 1977. It's written by Joe Hadelman, and he was also an established SF writer at the time. And Frederick Poole, the series editor, was pulling on some of his SF buddies to pen these Star Trek novels. So yeah, Joe Hayden was quite well established, and although brought in by the series editor Frederick Poole as a replacement for James Blish, he did only go on to write 2 Star Trek novels. Hayden himself was making an awful lot more money from his original SF stories rather than TV tie-ins. He got $7,500 for this Star Trek book as an advance. For his second original non-Star Trek novel, he was paid $100,000. So, not surprisingly, he stuck to writing his original novels and soon left Star Trek behind. It's a pretty solid effort and really reminiscent of an actual TV episode. The crew members are stranded on the planet and have no way off, not via transporter or even via shuttlecraft. So that was Planet of Judgment. It's pretty cool, that one. Yeah, really real good book. Now, the next one then is the second volume of Star Trek New Voyages. So we've already seen the first one, and once again edited by Sondra Marshak and Myra Colbreth. Nice little jacket there on that one. And once again, these were fan-submitted short stories, 8 in total. Now, the first story was actually written by Nichelle Nichols. Now, and the 2 series editors. And unlike the first one, this one didn't all get introductions by the rest of the main cast. Apparently, the reason why Nichelle Nichols was given the treatment, there we are, so surprised by Nichelle Nichols were given the treatment, is because by this time, these two, Sondra and Marna, had become a bit of a they've been on the Star Trek convention circuit and have bumped into Nichelle Nichols quite a bit. And at this time, she was employed by NASA to try and help recruit ethnic minorities and women as astronauts for NASA. And so they really admired her work and didn't like the way that the NASA astronauts were being treated, particularly on the back of the moon landing. So they said, well, why don't we give you star treatment and give you like the first spot in our brand new Star Trek anthology. And that's exactly what happened, which is quite a nice little story, isn't it, that? But yeah, another 8 in that series, fan-submitted stories. Now, the next one, once again, we looked at this one in our James Blish one, because this is written by Judy Lawrence, who was James Blish's widow. Basically, by this time, James Blish had died, sadly, of cancer, and J. Lawrence adapted the last 2 Muds episodes, which hadn't been done. As I said, she'd gone to the BBC and viewed the episodes and recorded the audio, and then she does introduce a third story featuring Harry Mudd, so the business as usual during altercations at the end. And these are all 3 of them are absolutely fantastic and really well worth your time. Superb cover on that one as well. I really like it. He's captured sort of Harry Mudd there very, very well indeed. So that's Mudd's Angels. Certainly a highlight of the series. Next book, September 1978, yet again, Vulcan. Can you believe it? This one's quite nice. Got introduction by David Gerrold, author of The Trouble with Tribbles, which is quite nice. But it is yet another Vulcan-themed novel. You'd think readers would have been a bit bored of these by now, but evidently not. So in this one, the crew go to the planet Arash 4 to establish if the natives there are sentient beings. So a scientist who specializes in alien species arrives on board the Enterprise and immediately demands to return home. Not knowing she would be working with a Vulcan, she would rather die than start now. Now, this one was actually a proposed script for the 4th season of Star Trek, the original series, which of course never happened. But Sky, the author, Kathleen Sky, was contacted by Bantam and asked to work it up into a full-length novel. And that's exactly what she did. So that's pretty cool. So this would have been almost certainly a story from Star Trek's original series, 4th series, if that had ever happened. Once again, fantastic cover, that one. Very, very nice. Yes, that's Vulcan. Cool on that. Now, one thing I do want to do while we're here, you can see the spines on these. So let me just get close in on those. So if you look at the spines here, you'll see that they're in red. Now, books that have been left on a shelf and then exposed to a bit of sunlight, the red is the first thing that fades on books. Reds and oranges, yellows to some degree as well. So a little tip here, if you're looking to find these in nice condition and build your own library up, try and find ones which have got really deep reds. So you can see, like that one there, my new Voyage is actually quite faded, even though the book is a really nice copy. My copy of Vulcan there, it's probably only been read maybe once carefully by myself, but you can still see it's been on the shelf there. And don't forget, in a lot of cases, these are 45 years old now, so they are going to start to show signs of wear. But if you can find them with nice deep red emblems, you know you've got a nice looked after copy. So this next one then is The Starless World by Gordon Eklund. Now, this novel was published in November 1978. Really, really nice sort of cover there with the Enterprise flying into something there. Really, really nice, that one. And yeah, the pretty decent plot on this one, and would have made a really good TV episode. So the Enterprise comes across a shuttle from a lost starship. On board is one survivor who was Kirk's roommate for 2 years whilst they were at the academy together. A person called Clayton. Now, alas, he's gone insane. Wouldn't you believe it? So the Enterprise orbits a nearby planet, and when Clayton escapes confinement, he heads to the bridge. So there you go, eh? Good stuff. Quite a thin little one, this. It's only 150 pages, so not a lot to it. Interesting down the bottom there, look, over 12 million Star Trek books in print, and that is quite something, isn't it? Yeah, this would have been a perfect TV episode. I wonder if, once again, a bit like the one from Kathleen Sky, I wonder if that was ever considered as one for a possible episode. January 1979 then sees this one, which is Trek to Madworld by Stephen Goldin. Now, on a rescue mission to save 700 dying colonists, the Enterprise gets pulled from its mission and trapped alongside a Klingon and a Romulan ship. A creature named Inouye arrives on the Enterprise to ask the three ships for assistance. The reward could change the power within the quadrant. So not a lot to say about this one. It's not one I've got round to reading yet, so I can't really pass judgment on it. But the plot sounds fantastic, and you can imagine, once again, this would have been quite a good actual TV episode, this one, with the Klingons and the Romulans involved. Apparently the author did enjoy the more sort of light-hearted, humour-filled episodes, and this one certainly does have a welcome bit of humour to it. The next one we've got is World Without End. So this is the second book to be written by Joe Hadelman, and it's got quite an interesting premise, with the Enterprise and the crew discovering an artificial world within an asteroid. Things get even more complicated when Spock spots a wrecked Klingon ship on the surface of the asteroid. Hadelman says he took about 9 months to write this one. He didn't want to write it and couldn't even buy himself out of his contract, ironically. It's generally considered, though, the better of his two novels, the other one being Planet of Judgement. So he really wasn't into writing this. He was already quite well established as a sci-fi writer, and 150 pages just, with big type. So certainly not the longest of the novels, but apparently it is quite a good one. It does sound pretty decent as well, doesn't it? It reminds me a little bit of the Genesis project, where they built that indoor cavern. You see it in the Wrath of Khan. So next then, in May 1979, came the long-awaited sequel to The Price of the Phoenix, which was The Fate of the Phoenix. So once again, Sondra Marshash and Mara Kulbreath. Really, really nice cover, this one. I believe, once again, it's by Parkin. Bob Parkin is the cover artist, and I think he's done quite a few of these. They're really quite distinctive. I got the Romulan ship up there. So this is one of the longest books in the Bantam range, and published in May 1979. So with work on Star Trek the Motion Picture in full swing, there was some back and forth between Bantam and Paramount over the initial resolution of the plot on this one. So a direct sequel to the earlier Price of the Phoenix, Kirk and crew thought that they had defeated Omni, but they were wrong. Once again, Kirk's doppelganger, again, James, appears, who is travelling with a Romulan commander whom he is falling in love with. They will have to face up to Omni, who itself is split into two separate entities. So there we are. This is, very fondly remembered, those first two Phoenix books. Very nice. So this next one then is published in November 1979. It's by Gordon Eklund, Devil World. This was his second Trek book, and this story revolves around the planet Heartland, which the Federation has placed under quarantine. A beautiful woman has asked Kirk to break the law and to take her to the planet. Nothing we've not seen before there. Fairly formulaic, this one, but has got quite interesting cover art. The main crew are not there. It does all sort of revolve around the plot of the book. Like some of these, this has got a little 95p, which is the British sort of import price on that one. And I reckon, although mine's got a tiny bit of fading, this is one of those ones that you'll have trouble to find with a really nice, bold red spine, I would imagine. February 1980, so we hit the 80s with Perry's Planet, and this one's by Jack C. Hadelman II. So by this time, Pocket Books had already been granted the ongoing rights for Star Trek and were gearing up massively to tie in and capitalise on the back of the popularity of Star Trek the motion picture. So these last few books were also not edited by sci-fi author Frederick Poole. In this novel, the crew of the Enterprise investigate a planet where the colonists do not commit any acts of aggression. With the Klingons getting involved, it falls to Dr. McCoy to find a solution in time. So like a non-aggressive species. Good stuff. Good stuff. That's Perry's Planet. So the penultimate Bantam book is this one here, The Galactic Whirlpool by David Gerrold. So David Gerrold, of course, was the original writer of the great Star Trek episode The Trouble with Tribbles. And this one came out in October 1980. And in this one, the Enterprise crew discover a giant spaceship that appears abandoned in the center of the universe. It seems that this ship originated from Earth, and this novel was originally a two-part script which Gerrold had written for the TV series before Tribbles was actually accepted and made. It was easy for him to flesh this one out into a novel. During the action, Wolf 359 was first mentioned, and this of course was revived years later in the episode Best of Both Worlds Part 2. So this is the very first mention within the world of Star Trek of Wolf 359. Obviously the location of that amazing battle in the two-part Borg story. The final book here was Death's Angel, and by this time the books were being published by Pocket as well as Bantam at the same time, which is crazy, isn't it? But this one got published in April 1981. Now it sees a visit to a planet, sees Kirk, Spock, and some of the crew slip into comas. A few days later they awaken, and all seem to be in reasonable health. During a diplomatic mission, things then start to go wrong when an ambassador is murdered and rumours of an angel of death start circulating around the ship. And it is sort of, this one is almost like it's like an Agatha Christie is a bit of a whodunit. You don't know who's behind the murder. There we are, decent length, 200 and a bit pages. And April 1981. Once again, very nice cover there by Bob Parkin. And that's like the Angel of Death behind with the Enterprise in an hourglass. Pretty cool stuff, eh? So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that little look at the Bantam Star Trek novels. If you have enjoyed today's video, do please give it the thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing for regular vintage classic Star Trek videos. I am going to be doing more of these. I'm trying to do at least one every single month, and I reckon I've got enough to at least the end of the year. So do hit that subscribe button if you've not already. Thank you very much for watching today's video, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.